I'm sorry, it turned into a part two because I had a call coming in. So I'm trying this on my phone. I want to see how it goes, and then eventually I'll invest in some like real camera stuff, right? So anyway, so I graduated with honors, I will say. And then I took a year off to get some work experience and to like adult a little bit. Dated and like did a little bit of traveling and just kind of adulted legitimately for the first time. I worked at a nonprofit organization that helped house homeless families. And I really got a taste of like, it was in the city. I was home based, so that means that home based meaning I would have to go from one home to another. I would have to assess homes. So some of the families went. So when we talk about homelessness, right, like they would be in the process of getting evicted because they may have lost their job. There's a gap in their income, but they picked up the income. It's gotten better, and you'd have to go out and look at the home to see if it was safe and adequate. And then we had families who were like homeless, like didn't have a place to stay, who were considered couch surfing. So couch surfing here in Michigan, I'm from Michigan. In Michigan, it's considered going from one home to another, like staying at people's houses, living on their couches, spending the night, using a spare bedroom for a day or two. So couch surfing, or they were in shelters. So we would help them who were in shelters, help them find housing that was in their price range, and we would help with budgeting. And that kind of helped me kind of figure out what budgeting was, because I felt like I couldn't necessarily talk to families about budgeting if I didn't understand it myself. So I started to work on figuring out how to budget, and it was an experience. I met some really great people, a couple bumps in the road, but the like head person of the organization, she was very stern, and I'll say her first name was Sharon. She was very stern, but she was a hard worker. And like when it was time for me to go, when she found out I got accepted into U of M, the University of Michigan, she was really proud of me. She celebrated me and gave me a farewell goodbye party, and that was nice. Like, I didn't know she liked me. And she said, one thing you really have to work on is your writing. And because she would see my notes, and like she was the one who would approve our notes, and she was right. I had to work on my writing. And because I later had other experiences when I got into grad school about my writing. So I did the University of Michigan. I got into the University of Michigan social work master's program, which goes back and forth to being like the number one social work program in the country. And I say that with so much pride. I wasn't waitlisted or anything. I think for a moment I was waitlisted, and then they sent me my acceptance letter, and I got into the 16-month program. And what that meant was I took enough credits to qualify me to only have to do the program for like 16 months. If my GPA was a little higher, I think I graduated in undergrad with like a 3.2 or 3.3. If it was a little higher, I could have done the 12-month program, which is a little more intense, but it's only a year. But I did the 16-month program. And when I'm doing the 16-month program, I had my first internship in a hospital setting. And boy, that was an experience. And there were people who impacted my journey, my social work journey, that has stayed with me for the rest of my life. And maybe I'll definitely make that a different video. But that experience, I learned a lot, not only about myself, but about what I wanted to do in the profession. My social work internship was in Children's Hospital in the city, in Detroit. And it was an experience. There were a lot of rough days, but there were also a lot of rewarding days, because there were moments where I got to connect with a variety of families. And I also got the really great opportunity to work in different parts of the hospital and in different segments of the hospital. So like some days, for a while, when I started in oncology, and I didn't understand if it would be sad, and I got to talk to both social workers that were there in the beginning. They were really informative, and I got a lot of information from them that I've always respected and appreciated. And then later on down the line, I got to work with like endocrinology, and got to learn more about like diabetes and like what it does to the body. And I got to interact with like sickle cell, and like how it really impacts the Black community, and how there's no the resources are so limited for people with sickle cell, who are like literally you're told that you have this for the rest of your life, and it impacts like how you kind of function, how you function. So it was really interesting. I graduated, and after I graduated, I did the 16-month program. I graduated from the University of Michigan, and I went into, because I remember I had the history with maternal infant health, I went to an infant mental health program in the city of Detroit. I worked with a nonprofit organization, and I did more home-based work. And that was a journey. It was impactful. Oh my gosh, it was so impactful. But I didn't get the supervision that I had gotten from the other experiences. So I started to do some research, and I started to learn about like what would qualify me for the proper supervision. And this is one reason why I wanted to do a channel like this, is because I wanted to confidently like communicate how important it is for you to know kind of where you're going, and like what the position is that you're kind of aspiring for. Because to kind of play it out with social work, especially in Michigan, our criteria for social workers, you have to have a certain amount of hours to become, not only limited license, but fully licensed, a licensed clinical therapist. And you also need to take this really long test, which isn't like, it's not really expensive. Like, I think like $100, maybe $300. I don't know. It's not like expensive, but it's pricey. But and I'll have a segment on how I studied for it, and how it helped me, and how I was able to pass. And I took that bad boy a couple times, and I'm not gonna scare you on how many times, but I passed it after I studied, pretty much. And I studied the way that it worked for me. But yeah, like, so basically my thing is with this whole like this job, I enjoyed what I was doing, but I wasn't getting the supervision I needed. And I needed the supervision to be with a licensed clinical social worker, not a counselor. I stayed there for 3 years, and it took me 3 years to realize that. And so I was going to different trainings, because you also need to maintain certain hours, and they don't go towards your license until you're fully licensed. And I was limited because I just graduated. But they go towards your like you just get more information, and sometimes it's required at the type of position you're in. And the nonprofit I was working at was called a CMH, which is Community Mental Health, and there's certain requirements that you need to sustain employment. And so I would have to go to these trainings, and I met this really cool, she had these beautiful dreadlocks, and had this gorgeous smile, this older woman who's really nice, and just resonated with me. And she would do these trainings, and she did my introduction to infant mental health, not maternal infant health. Maternal infant health was about mom and baby, kind of just doing a quick check-in. Infant mental health is more so about the process, and about the connection, and about relationship and bonding, and getting an idea of kind of how the environment is affecting baby and mommy. And it wasn't just resources. It was really getting into like factors of the relationship, and like how, we talked about like the ghost in the nursery, how it affected how we interacted with other people. So I'm going to end this one because I'm going to go to the next video about more about my job experience.